Welcome to this very special online healing retreat brought to you by AcousticHealth.com. I'm Lorraine Gailey, and today we honor Earth Day. We love nature. It is the divine flow of energy, and it's full of sacred geometry. We honor it today, Earth Day. I thank you for joining us in this very special program. So many of us wish to protect the beauty of our beloved Gaia. So in order to do this, we're going to go inside and tap into self-mastery. We're going to learn how to access the higher mind, or the superconscious mind, as my guests today call it. It's done with dowsing, the use of a pendulum. It can affect great change in your life, and you're going to learn all the basics about it. Two excellent teachers, Dave and Erina Cowan, are co-authors of the book Dowsing Beyond Duality, and they certify healers all across the nation in using this modality to find the answers of all facets in your life. This is the bridge to your superconscious mind. Enjoy Dave and Erina as they teach you these lessons. And afterwards, we'll show you how you can add this healing modality into your life and your work. Enjoy the show. Welcome to this online video class brought to you by AcousticHealth.com. This course is Mind Field Repatterning with Dave and Erina Cowan. We invite you to pick up your pendulum or any similar object and join along in the exercises that will be presented today. Our program begins shortly.
Welcome everyone. We are really happy to be joining with you today for our online dowsing presentation, and really what we're working with, Mind Field Repatterning, is a system that we have evolved together. My name is Erina Cowan and my husband David Cowan. We have evolved this system and have been having a wonderful time over the last decade together, seeing how we can use a pendulum and use dowsing to tap into all the hidden information that lies in the unconscious mind, access it, and then shift patterns, use the information to allow us to let go of what we no longer need or want and what we want to create in our lives. So it opens up on all levels, all possibilities.
Indeed, and we want to thank Lorraine Gailey for this opportunity to share what we've learned and developed together. And we hope that you settle in and simply open up to some new possibilities. We need to become an empty glass in order for something new to fill our minds and to fill our awarenesses. So I'm going to invite you all to let go of any expectations, any preconceptions that you might have, especially around the world of dowsing, and be ready for something entirely new. The information that we're going to impart today and the experiences that we're going to share with you are actually based on the book that Erina and I co-authored called Dowsing Beyond Duality. And so we're going to talk a little bit about the meaning of that title as a premise for this type of work.
Yes, and this is an experiential class. For those of you that already are working with the pendulum, you may want to have your pendulum handy to work with us. For those of you that are new to it, even a needle on a string on a thread is good enough if you do not have a pendulum with you. And as we go through the clearings, whether you are participating or not, you will be receiving the blessings as we go through them. And David is going to start us off today and really get us all up and going, which you do so well, and using the pendulum and really laying things out for the foundation. And then I'll be following along. I'll follow up after he's done getting all that wonderful groundwork going and getting everybody using the pendulum and shifting patterns.
So, make yourselves comfortable, drink water, and let's play. So in this introductory section, we're going to present as if we were doing a live class. Our live classes are generally either 1 or 2 days, and so obviously we're not going to be able to compress everything that is covered in those classes in this short video, but we want to give you the essence and hopefully the experience that will provide, again, an opening for new possibilities. Both Erina and I have worked in the so-called alternative healing fields for many years now, and we've actually used a number of different technologies in that process. And the technologies have been wonderful. They have, how can I say, opened us up to new possibilities within ourselves. I look at technology, whether it's something as simple as a shovel or something as complex as a computer, as simply as an extension of a human potential. After all, they do come from a human mind and through human creativity. And when we access these technologies, they literally pull us into our own potential if we allow them to do that. What we've discovered, however, is that the greatest technology and the most powerful technology is the mind that creates technologies. And so we've really simplified our approach to healing, creating energetic shifts, to simply recognizing the power of the mind. This has really brought things home, you might say, not only on a technological perspective, but also in a responsibility perspective. In other words, we discover that all of our experiences in the world, relationships, politics, career, all of these experiences that we're having are also being created from this same creative level of mind. So for us, the pendulum or the dowsing tool, we consider it a bridge, a way for us to access information from a deeper level or from a creative level of mind that the conscious mind is not currently aware of. And I think an analogy here is probably a good way of really anchoring this understanding. If you think of an iceberg, the tip of the iceberg is only about 10% of the entire mass of the iceberg, and that's the part that's above the surface. We could say that that's an analogy for the conscious mind, for the thinking mind. Physiologically, there's only 7% of the brain, a little area here called Broca's region, where we actually mediate language. And for most of us, that's where we operate from a language-based, image-based, very limited state of consciousness, much like the tip of the iceberg. The tip of the iceberg doesn't know that it's this massive body. It thinks it's only above the surface. So we could call that surface the boundary of our conscious awareness. And yet there's an aspect of mind that is operating below that surface that is actually doing much more than we can imagine. In the past, we've called that the unconscious. And I think the reason that term was chosen was because nobody really understood it. We prefer to give ourselves a little credit, and we call that aspect of mind that is below conscious awareness the superconscious. And I'll tell you why. Not only is the superconscious mind mediating all of the trillions of biochemical events in your body this very moment, it's beating your heart, it's breathing the lungs, it's doing all of these things, and yet our conscious mind does not have to be engaged in that process. But beyond that, this superconscious mind, below our conscious awareness, also shares the same ocean with all of those other icebergs, all of those other beings that on a conscious level we believe are separate from us. We look out across the ocean and all we see are tips of other icebergs, not remembering or not recognizing that those icebergs are all floating in the same ocean of mind, you might say, or spirit if you prefer. So in other words, on the level of your superconscious mind, you have access to information that is far beyond even our imagination to grasp. Not only do you have access to the deeper levels of your own awareness, but you also have access to everybody else's awareness. You could say you have access to universal awareness. Deepak Chopra implied the same thing many years ago in his work in quantum medicine, and he called this the field of all potential, or the cosmic computer. So when we dowse, when we use a pendulum, we're simply creating a bridge between that creative level of mind, which in truth is responsible for the creation of all we ever experience, including this very universe. We have a bridge for communication between the conscious level and the superconscious. And that bridge is accomplished through specific movements or motions of the autonomic nervous system. So just as the conscious mind is tapped into, or hardwired you might say, into the central nervous system, and by that I mean when you consciously desire to create a change in your environment, for example, to go get a glass of water, the conscious mind, through the central nervous system, sets up the commands and your body does what it's told. The superconscious, however, expresses through what we call the autonomic nervous system. That's the nervous system that mediates all the automatic responses we talked about earlier: breathing, biochemistry, heartbeat, all of that. So those superconscious aspects are communicating through the autonomic nervous system. And the autonomic nervous system, of course, pervades the entire body. It is responsible for what we would call biological intelligence as well. I'm sure many of you understand and have heard of the fight or flight response. This is an automatic biological reaction to the perception of danger or threat to our existence, where our physiology automatically adapts and adjusts without any conscious intervention to the potential of threat or stress. This is an example of how the autonomic nervous system operates according to deeper level commands. But what we've learned is that through dowsing we can actually join the intentions and the thoughts of the conscious mind to the superconscious mind, and again create a bridge of communication between the two. And we do that again through using a tool such as a pendulum. Now in this demonstration I'm using something called a bobber. A bobber is exactly like a pendulum, in that this could very easily be a standard pendulum or bracelet, or, like Erina said, even a thread and needle will suffice. All the pendulum is a tool for amplifying subtle movements of the autonomic nervous system according to specific pre-programmed movements. Many of you, I'm assuming, are familiar with muscle testing. This is when your chiropractor or your nutritionist, checks your muscles for yes and no responses. When they do that, they're tapping into the same process that I'm discussing here now. They're asking the conscious mind, but at the same time the superconscious mind, to give yes or no answers based on specific questions. And in a sense, we're doing the same thing, at least with the initial phases of dowsing. And what we're going to do together, folks, is we're going to actually create, through a specific exercise, a program within ourselves to accept specific movements of our micromuscles, mediated again by the autonomic nervous system and thus the superconscious mind, to give us accurate yes and no responses. But before we do that, I also want to step back just a moment and explain a little bit about, well, first of all, the title of our book, Dowsing Beyond Duality. Like any healing modality, it's a temptation to, how can I say, regard what we're doing as somehow significant or somehow special. The definition of the word healing for us is simply to become whole. When there's a pain, when there's a discomfort, our mind is fractured, it's distracted. And so when we alleviate the pain, in a sense, we move towards a greater level of wholeness. And that really is our purpose in any healing practice, whether it be Western medicine, herbs, or dowsing for that matter. It's to recover that sense of wholeness. When we do, the body automatically responds with an expression or projection of wholeness. So when we talk about the mind, and we talk about healing, and we talk about practices like dowsing, there's also a natural tendency to refer to past experience. And historically, dowsing has been looked at as a well, a mysterious, perhaps even a metaphysical, or even a spiritual type of intervention. And one of the great advantages of being in this information age, besides being able to look at this video, is that we also have a science to help us understand and explain these things that in the past were relegated to the realm of mystery. And quantum physics has given us that language. It's given us a concrete appreciation of how energy moves, how the mind is unlimited, and how we literally create our experiences. So I'm not going to get into the finer points of quantum physics. There are many authors and many wonderful works on that. Again, I refer back to Deepak Chopra, pioneer in bringing this awareness. But there is a certain three things that I want to refer to from the quantum physics world that really do help to provide a solid foundation or basis for truly appreciating what it is we're doing in this modality. And I'm referring now to a document called Dowsing 101. This is a document that we use in our certification program, and obviously I'm not going to go through the whole thing today, but I am going to refer here to some notes on three basic principles of quantum physics that help to explain and satisfy the conscious mind's need to understand what's going on here. The first principle is something called non-locality. And what that refers to is that even though on the level of the body we do seem to be separated by time, space, distance, bodies themselves, that the mind, as a different, you might say, dimension of energy, is operating beyond those limits. In other words, thought, the mind, is operating in a non-local field. In other words, your mind is not limited to time and space as your physical body is. On the level of mind, we are much freer to roam through time and space, and through imagination and intention, literally create paths of experience for ourselves. So that's a scientific principle known as non-locality. And by the way, these quantum principles are the most scientifically validated studies and principles and conclusions of the entire field of 20th century science. The second principle is that of the so-called observer effect. And basically all that says is that wherever you put your attention, wherever you focus your mind, something changes. In other words, there's no such thing as the distant or separated observer. This principle, of course, challenges one of the basic principles of the scientific method or the materialist method, and that is that observation is separate from what is being observed, and that it can be trusted as a reliable source of information. Quantum physics counters that with the understanding that whatever we put our attention on, there literally is an energetic exchange on the level of subatomic particles. So wherever you put your attention, you've already begun to create a shift. Once we embrace that principle and consciously use it for the purpose of healing, it becomes even much more powerful. The more strongly we can focus our attention and intention with confidence and with a loving purpose, that observer effect is also amplified. And the third principle is that of indeterminacy. And really all that's saying is that we live in an energetic universe of all possibilities. Anything is possible. As a matter of fact, if you can imagine anything on some level, in some dimension of time or space, it already exists. We have no idea in our current, and I'm speaking generally of course, in our current state of how powerful this mind is, this superconscious mind that is connected to all other versions of the superconscious mind. It's our understanding from our studies in non-duality that it is this mind that has literally created this universe. So that's how powerful you are. If anything, this study, this form of dowsing, is a form of self-empowerment. It's not another technique, to add to your credentials necessarily. It's not something that, is going to replace any of the modalities that you're already using. But it is an opportunity to step into what we would say a more expanded sense of non-duality. And this is another principle, I think, that's very helpful to appreciate and understand. Non-duality is simply a way of saying that duality, or the experience of separation and opposites, is not true, that it's not real. We, on the conscious mind level, we seem to operate in a world of duality, in a world of opposites. Up and down, hot and cold, east and west, black and white, good and evil, life and death. All of our experiences here seem to vacillate between one, say, a positive and a negative aspect. What we understand from the studies of non-duality, and specifically A Course in Miracles, is that this dualistic universe is essentially a projection or a movie of a mind that has been divided within itself between its memory of wholeness and its desire to experience something other than wholeness or separation. And it's this dualistic desire on the part of this creative mind that has literally projected the movie of this universe. I know that's a big concept and I don't expect you all to accept or even believe it, but it's the way it is for me at least, and for us. So when we dowse, it's very important to recognize, or when we use any healing modality, it's very important to recognize that in truth what we're doing is we're attempting to heal the mind of its need to create dualistic experiences. To break down, you might say, the investment that we have in ourself as separate, as suffering, as needing to sacrifice, all of these other forms of suffering. All forms of suffering, including illness, stem from this understanding or this belief that we are somehow separate and that in doing so we deserve to suffer. So these are premises, you might say, that do not come automatically to us, but eventually do come to all of us as we understand that it is our perceptions of the world, it's our understandings and beliefs that literally create our experiences. So when we use the dowsing instrument, we're using it as a tool to access from the conscious mind deeply held unconscious beliefs based on this idea of our separation, of our lack of wholeness. In many cases, these beliefs might show up in the form of, let's say, a childhood trauma memory, or even a past life conflict. It doesn't really matter what the form is. The form that these things show up in is the form that the conscious and the superconscious mind can accept without going into fear. In truth, we're all dealing with one problem here, and that is our belief in our separation. But the mind is not yet convinced of that. So we work with the mind on the level that it can accept in the moment without fear. So I'll leave you now to ponder those premises, and please revisit these ideas as I need to frequently. Again, my conscious mind, like yours, needs to make sense of things. It needs to create linear connections. It needs to understand on its level what is going on. And that's, of course, the purpose of this introduction, is to try and to give the whole mind an opportunity to grasp something much greater than it can imagine. So we're going to start out with a demonstration and also an opportunity for you to begin to access your superconscious mind through what we call classic dowsing. When you say dowsing to most people, they conjure the image of the farmer in the field, with the forks and, or looking for lost objects, this kind of thing. And that's a very legitimate form of dowsing, been around for many decades, if not centuries. As a matter of fact, we understand that major petroleum companies actually employ dowsers to find the best, resources on the planet. And of course, they don't tell their stockholders that's how they're finding the oil. We actually met a professional dowser here in Denver not too long ago, whose main job was to find water. And he was actually hired by the state of Texas to do so a couple of years ago when Texas was experiencing major droughts and fires. So dowsing is around in the, you might say, fringes of many of our institutions. And this is what we call classic dowsing. It's a form of accessing information that your conscious mind is not capable of tapping into, but your superconscious mind is very aware of. And we do that primarily through simply asking a question from our conscious to our superconscious mind allowing the superconscious mind to respond through the autonomic nervous system through specific pre-programmed signals. So again, I'm using for purposes of demonstration, I'm using what is called a bobber. A bobber is no different than a large pendulum, although I can hold it this way so it's much easier for you to see the different movements and motions. And what you're seeing right now is a motion, a vertical line. And for me, this vertical line is my yes response. If I was to say, show me yes, this would continue. However, a negative would show up in the form of a horizontal movement. Now, just to explain, when I was first dowsing, for me, intuitively, a yes would come out in the form of a right spin, and a no would come out in the form of a left spin. My dowsing instructor, a wonderful gentleman named Raymond Grace, however, in the workshop he taught many years ago, suggested that we save those movements for the more active form of dowsing, which we'll also be talking about in a moment, and that we reprogram ourselves, if we're in that mode, for the vertical and horizontal lines, thus freeing up the spins for what we call the active form of dowsing. And in order to do that, we simply need to produce the movement and tell ourselves what it means. And there's something about repetition that takes information from our short-term to our long-term memory. Some say it only takes 7 repetitions for for information to become permanently embedded in our deeper mind, in our unconscious mind. This is why advertising works, by the way. If you hear the same lie enough, part of you actually believes it. So what we're going to do, and I invite you to do this now, if you're comfortable with this, is to pick up your instrument, whatever it is. And by the way, many pendulums come with way more chain than you actually need. It's been our experience that if you're using a standard pendulum, that you only need 3 to 4 inches of actual chain length. If the length is any longer, again, it just takes longer to get responses and ultimately longer to move through a process such as a session, for example. So use whatever it is you're using, hold it fairly short so that you can get quicker responses. And I'm going to suggest now that each of us produce consciously, don't wait for anything to happen, but to consciously produce a very strong vertical movement with your chosen pendulum tool. And again, the tool itself is not magical. There's no mysticism involved here. It is simply an extension or an amplification of a biological response. You could say that the dowsing tool is a biofeedback instrument, and I think that would be very accurate. So, however, consciously producing an up and down or vertical movement now with your chosen pendulum, I'm going to encourage you to speak out loud, "This is my yes," those 4 words, and we're going to do it together 9 times to really ensure that the conscious mind gets the information and that it goes down into long-term memory. Are you ready? Let's start together now. This is my yes. 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 And finally, this is my yes. I said earlier it only takes 7 repetitions, but I like the number 9. Now, in a similar fashion, we want to get a no response. So we create now for ourselves a strong, okay, don't be shy, a strong horizontal movement, and in a similar fashion, we program our unified mind with the information that this is my no, starting now. This is my no. 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 And this is my no. Now, our experience has been in classes that usually 85 to 90% of people, this works. And you can test it for yourself right now by simply holding your pendulum out in front of you without any intention or expectation. Don't forget to breathe. Don't forget to be relaxed, and simply command, show me yes. Show me yes. Now, the response you get may be anywhere from strong to weak. It doesn't really matter. If it's a weak response, go with it. And as you work with this more and more, what you'll find is that the response will get stronger. The weakness of response could be an indication of some level of inner resistance or fear of accessing our own power, really. There are a couple of special circumstances in which this process can be blocked. And I think we'll leave that off as far as this presentation goes. But if it's you, if you're the one, that 10% where nothing happens, I encourage you to contact us and we can look at doing some further clearings to release that. But nevertheless, even with just yes and no responses, you have a very powerful tool for tapping into that deeper level of the mind. Again, that is your doorway, it's your library card into universal intelligence. There's nothing that's not available to you. The only limit to the information that you can receive through these yes and no responses is your imagination, your ability to frame questions. So in our Dowsing 101 here, which you will be, by the way, provided access to this document, some of the exercises that you can begin with to validate your yes and no responses is to simply say something like, today is, and then name the correct day. So whatever day it is that you're viewing this, that is the correct day. Simply hold your instrument out in front of you and say, today is, in this case, Saturday. Is that right? Is it Saturday? Oh, sorry. I've been elsewhere. I've been off planet. Today is Monday. And again, your superconscious should be able to recognize that. Now, to validate a no question, say something a little out of balance with what you know to be true. Today is Tuesday, for example, and see if you don't get the appropriate response. Okay? So really, classic dowsing in the form of yes and no is very practical. Some of the other kinds of questions are, my name is, and then give your correct name. My name is David, and my superconscious agrees. My name is Bob, and my superconscious goes, who are you trying to fool? Not true. So these are good reinforcements, and I would suggest that if you're new to these concepts and to these skills, to begin using yes and no questions with classic dowsing in very practical ways. For example, when you wake up and have your coffee in the morning, coffee is good? No, don't ask that question. You might get a no. Rather, ask something like, does my body need protein this morning? Yes. Does my body need fruit this morning? No. Does my body desire carbohydrates this morning? No. Okay, so lean towards protein. Or where you're in the restaurant, let's say, and you're looking through the menu, with one hand you could be pointing at the different items. Does my body want this choice here? No. Does my body want this choice here? No. Does my body want this choice here? Yes. Okay? So you can use yes and no for really practical, down-to-earth decisions. Is it in the best interest that I go to the movies tonight? No. Is it in the best interest of myself and all involved that I stay home and just maybe do some reading or meditation tonight? Yes. So in other words, there's no longer any need to rely only on your conscious mind to get validation or negation of choices and decisions. You can now go deeper and access that level of mind that, again, is non-local. So remember, your superconscious mind already knows the outcomes of different decisions. It already knows what is in your best interest. Your conscious mind, however, is only focused in on what it can perceive in the moment. So learn to trust these results. And that actually brings me to another point. And one of the things that many people in this early phase of learning these skills come up against, we call it a road bump, is the confidence factor. Many folks we've met have said, yeah, I started to dowse, but then I began to doubt my own accuracy and because I was getting the answers I wanted. So my suggestion to you, if that should occur, and really that's the conscious mind, again, questioning from its own frame of reference the validity of what you're doing. My suggestion is to simply ask. Is this response coming from only my conscious mind? Or is this response coming from my ego? And again, your superconscious will answer you without prejudice. One thing about the superconscious mind, and this is a good thing to know, is it cannot deceive. The conscious mind is very good at deception because the level of perception that the conscious mind operates on is a level of deception. Okay? And that's going back to these ideas of non-duality, that perception itself is illusory. It's a functional illusion in terms of the realm that it operates in, but essentially is an illusion. So when these doubts come up, when these questions come up as to your own abilities and the validity of this process, recognize that it's coming from a part of the mind that is in doubt of life itself, that it needs evidence based on its own criteria. But there's a part of you that is connected on a much deeper level to a much higher form of intelligence. So simply ask the questions as they arise. Is this practice in my highest good? Yes. Am I a natural dowser? Yes. Can I eventually master these skills? Yes. Can I be an effective healer of myself, my loved ones, and my relationships through this practice? Yes. So don't be shy, in other words, about asking yourself the questions that the conscious mind will conjure up. Eventually, your conscious mind, through its own experience and through your continued connection on this deeper level, begins to relax and begins to accept and begins to unify. When the conscious and the superconscious mind are aligned, you literally step into your power. You could call it awakening or empowerment or even enlightenment. So it's just the disconnection of the conscious mind from who we truly are as spirit that has created, again, this duality, this sense of separation. So in that sense, dowsing is another possible modality to bring healing to our own minds. Again, the definition of healing simply being the return to wholeness. Now, with classic dowsing, aside from yes and no questions, and by the way, if your responses to your questions are vague or kind of, weak, look at the way you're asking the question. As I said earlier, the superconscious mind cannot deceive, but it will take you literally. For example, if you were to ask right now, does my car need gas? You will always get a yes, because cars always need gas. But if you were to ask, does my car need gas now? In other words, get more specific, you may very well get a no. So again, look at the quality and look at the specificity of your questions if the answers you're getting are not, how can I say, consistent or strong. And you can also branch out in your questioning. You can ask, am I asking the right question? Is this question going to lead me to where I need what I need to know? Or do I need to follow another line of questioning? In a way, we become lawyers. We become expert witness interrogators, and of course we're also the witness at the same time. But we learn to ask questions that take on different perspectives of the same situation until we can get that clarity within ourselves and until the answers begin to make sense on a whole mind level. Now, another application of classic dowsing that goes a little bit beyond simply yes and no is measurements, digital measurement. And by that I mean anything that can be measured in terms of numbers, whether it be length, whether it be time, whether it be distance, whether it be weight, whether it be density, whatever. Anything that can be measured in terms of digits can also be accessed through this classic dowsing and through accessing your superconscious mind. And in order to do so, we need to create what we call a scale of 10. This is moving into the area what we would call charts. In the 101 guide, there's an example of a chart of 10, which is simply a pie chart like this, with 10 lines and numbered from one horizon at 0 and the other over here at 10. This can be easily drawn on any piece of paper, which I encourage you to do now if that's convenient for you. And when I first discovered the use of this scale of 10, I was using it practically for everything. I mean, I was an obsessive scale of 10 dowser because I was so fascinated with the accuracy and the depth of information that I could gain from a chart of 10. So rather than just asking, does my body need protein this morning, I would ask, what percentage of benefit to my health is having protein this morning, and it would go, say, to 8 for 80% as an example. Or to what degree does this particular choice on the menu support me physically? Oh, it's only a 2. Does it support me emotionally? Oh, it's an 8. Well, no wonder, it's cheesecake. So, in other words, you can get much more specific using a chart of 10 than simply yes and no, anything that can be measured. For example, I'll give you a little vignette to consider. Let's say, God forbid, that your car breaks down on a lone highway, and you're not sure whether or not the best place to go for a tow truck is back the way you came or the way you went forward, the way you're going. So you take out your chart of 10, or you quickly scrawl one on a piece of paper, and you ask, how many digits in the number of miles to the closest service station in that direction? 2 digits, let's say. How many digits in the number of miles to the closest service station in that direction? 4 digits. So already you know that in that direction, the maximum number of miles away would be 99, whereas in that direction, it could be thousands of miles away. So which way are you going to hitchhike? Of course, that whole scenario is probably imaginary now because we all have cell phones. But this is the kind of thing that we can do with measurements, is that we can further refine or define the information and the quality and the depth of information that is available to us. Now, as I said, when I first learned the scale of 10, I was using it for many, many things, not only for measuring specific digits, but also for percentages, which I'll show you in a moment. What I discovered, however, that it wasn't really necessary for me to actually write out that chart. And because I was gazing at my left hand at a certain point of time, and I realized that my hand also provides me a built-in chart of 10. If you're right-handed and you look at the back of your left hand, just imagine, if you will, a horizon, okay, from here to here, okay? And on the left here, you would have your 0, your 1, your 2, your 3, your 4, your 5, your 6, your 7, your 8, your 9, and your 10, using the digits and the spaces in between. So I'm going to encourage you right now to fan out your opposite hand to your dominant hand. And again, if you're left-handed, you're going to see it slightly differently. I would suggest keeping the 0 on the left and the 10 on the right, no matter which scale you're using. And hold your pendulum as you would over a chart over the wrist, the center of the wrist. And that's, of course, the hub of your horizon, right here, right? And as an experiment right now, I'm going to just suggest that you command out loud. Now, it's important to use your voice when we're learning these things, when we're anchoring these skills, because the voice, again, is a conscious process. And so by employing the voice as we anchor these skills, we're again bringing that conscious mind, even though it may have doubts and uncertainties, we're bringing that conscious mind into alignment with our desire. So, for example, holding your pendulum, as I just mentioned, simply command, show me 8. Show me 8. Okay? And again, don't forget to breathe. Don't forget to relax. No expectation or attachment to outcomes. Show me 2. Show me 2. It's actually at this point that many folks experience for the first time the power of the superconscious mind to actually operate through their nervous system and to actually comply with these desires. Show me 5. Show me 5. Okay? So again, if this is working for you, great. If it's tentative or weak, keep going. I encourage you to, again, simply breathe, simply relax. It's a re-education of the mind and of the nervous system. And in some cases, it may take more perseverance than in others. But nevertheless, with this tool, you have access to what I would call the cosmic computer. After all, what is a computer but it's simply something that mediates numbers? And you have access to this. Now, one of the basic principles of how to use this effectively is when you're dowsing for an unknown quantity. Let's say, for example, back to that highway analogy, you're not sure how many miles in that direction the service station is, and so when you're dowsing an unknown quantity, like mileage in this case, your first question will always be, how many digits in the answer? Okay, so in that direction, there's 4 digits in the answer. Then you individually douse out the digits. The first digit being 1, the second being 3, the next one being 6, and 5. So 1,365 miles in that direction, there is a service station. Yes, okay? And again, this will come in handy as you begin to, as your imagination begins to extend out to some of the possibilities of measurements that can be made. Not only can you measure and quantify issues this way, you can also get percentages. So, for example, let me see, there's some examples here in the notes. With 100% meaning fully vibrant and functional, at what percentage is the life force of my liver, for example? So turning again to our own physical body, we can use percentages on the same scale to measure the chi, or the life force, or the vitality of any physical area in the body. And I'm going to do that right now. Now, when you're using percentages, it's very important to be very clear in your mind as to what 10 or 100% represents. In other words, we need to be clear as to what our scale is representing. And in the case of measuring organ integrity, we go with 10 or 100% being optimal vitality, the healthiest we can possibly imagine. So if 10 is optimal, where is the chi or vitality of my liver at this time? Oh, 90%. I guess the milk thistle's working. So that's pretty good. Now, if it was a little lower, I might go into some other questions. Is my liver being stressed by toxins? Okay, for an example. And to what degree on a percentage scale are toxins playing a role in my liver's energy level, 100%. So that would give me some direction as to some decisions I might make around detoxifying my liver, for example. So you can actually go through, and we have in the coursework here, we actually have a chart that we made up of basically a list of all of the body systems and organs that you can imagine or think of. And then you simply go through each one and check on a percentage scale the chi or the life force or the vitality of that particular organ or system. So this is a very practical application of using the chart of 10 as a percentage chart. When it comes to emotions, and again this is actually very common because we are emotional beings, it helps to understand the nature of what an emotion is. Even though the word emotion seems to imply movement, emotion, you could say, almost stands for energy in motion, it's not moving, and that's why it's a problem. It's a stuck energy pattern. And what happens is we have an experience that is unpleasant, or that knocks us out of our comfort zone, or that is shocking on some level. And the mind, again, the conscious mind, in the way it operates and the way humanity operates at this time, is that in order to survive that issue, in order to surmount and prevent it in the future, we need to give it a meaning. It's almost like we're meaning-generating beings. If we can't understand what's happening to us, we go into all kinds of insecurity and fear. But if we can give meaning to our experience, then I understand, I can move on. And in that process of needing to give meaning to our experiences, however, we freeze the memory of that trauma into a solid form that is literally held in our cells as a picture or an image. In other words, we project from our DNA what this meant to us. And this image held this cellular memory of this event, along with our interpretation, literally creates an energy pattern that can disrupt normal and natural detoxification in this case. So How I would deal with this is I would first of all ask, is this an emotion that occurred in this life? No. Okay. So you're carrying forward an emotional charge or memory from what we would call a parallel life or another time frame. Yes. So in other words, looking for the cause of this in standard psychology or psychiatry would be a big waste of time and money, because you're not going to find it in this life. And this idea of parallel lives, of course, is resonant with this concept of oneness. In truth, there's only one of us here. And so even though we like to entertain the idea that we have special past lives and that are unique to us, in truth, we're experiencing all lives, because who you are is the mind that is dreaming this universe. So there are no special necessarily past or future lives. And yet there are memories of ourselves in other timelines that are specific to our chosen learning path. And so that's how we're looking at this. So is there a memory held of an emotion held in your field from another timeline? Yes. And would the most efficient way of clearing this be to recognize that other timeline? Yes. So by going to identifying those other timelines and going there to apply the spin, what we're doing is we're cooperating with the mind in its belief in time, where the mind can go, oh yeah, okay, I can entertain that possibility. Sure, why not? That makes sense to me. So we're playing with the mind on a level that it's willing to recognize. So when it comes to time, I'm going to ask, do we need to go to another time frame identified as a year? Yes. And how many digits in that year? Okay, there are 4 digits. And the first digit is 1, and the second is 2, and the third is 9, and the fourth is 4. So we're talking about the year 1294. Yes. Is this AD? Yes. Okay. So again, we're recognizing that all time is occurring simultaneously, and these timelines, no matter how far out they seem to be, are really happening simultaneously in quantum time. And our minds understand that on a quantum level. So these things are not that far away. As a matter of fact, they're in what we would call an experience of vertical time. So do we have permission to go to 1294 and release you from this emotion in that time frame, thereby releasing your cellular memory from its resistance to natural detoxification? Yes. And we do this now with a left spin. So we direct our attention now to the experience that you're having in parallel time of 1294 AD in this case, and we release you of the thoughts, of the beliefs, of the assumptions and projections and attitudes and thus memories that you created in that time frame to explain to yourself the emotions that you were experiencing. And as we dissolve those mental factors and decisions and projections, we allow the emotional energy of that experience, the feeling itself, to simply flow through you without identification and without resistance, thus releasing you on all levels of your being of the need to hold on to that memory. And as that memory charge is dissolved and released in 1294, we extend this release now to all timelines, dimensions, and expressions of yourself, including present moment. And we release the cellular memory as the memory of the cells are released. We release any blockages or resistance in the areas of natural and normal detoxification, extending the benefits of this release to your entire timeline of this life, and enabling you now to adjust this timeline to no longer reflect the presence of toxins in the body. Now, what you say when you do the dowsing is going to be, of course, different for each and every one of us. In the book, we do give some sample scripts of things that, suggested things, but you're all going to say things differently based on your own background, your own understanding, your own studies, your own professions, etc. So it doesn't really matter that you be 100% thorough or complete in what you say, because you never can be. It's only the conceptual mind, again, that is even saying these things. We can never be fully cognizant of all of the aspects and every fine element involved here, but we do our best. And we do what generally feels right, trusting that the Dowsing system, which is the greater mind, again, that encompasses our spirit guides, beings of light, angels, helpers, all kinds of aspects of mind that are here for the same purpose, to facilitate healing, are all part and parcel of this intention. As I said earlier, once you make a decision, once you create an intention, the entire universe hinges and changes and revolves around that decision. That's how powerful we all are. So now the spin is coming to a natural conclusion, and we go back and now look at the level of toxicity in your body, which was a 5 before, and I'm getting now it's a 0. Now, of course, that's an energetic reading. It doesn't mean to say that the body won't necessarily need to go through some natural, normal detoxification. And I would suggest that you probably drink more water than you would ordinarily, and perhaps eat lightly for the next 3 days or so, just to help facilitate that release. But that you can expect, greater level of clarity and lightness and more of the natural you by that release. So the world of active dowsing, of creating change through spins and intentions, it's not just about problem solving, although on the surface it may appear like that. It really is about clearing the mind, cleansing the mind, again, of our own beliefs, attitudes, assumptions, etc. And these are the only things that really keep us in limitation. There is another quantum aspect of what is going on here as well. And that is because we are all connected on that level of mind, that ocean of awareness that we all share. When one person receives a clearing or a healing and comes closer to their own experience of wholeness, everybody else is affected. So we're not really working with individuals, we're working with the whole of humanity when we focus on one particular issue or individual. It's like the ocean itself gets just a little bit clearer each time one of us steps forward and requests or gives permission for this kind of work. So I hope this brief introduction has given you somewhat of an idea, the flavor of the kinds of things that can be accomplished through your own mind and through these techniques that we have called mind field repatterning. We've covered a lot in this tape, and so don't be discouraged if you didn't get all of it. But even if you got a small part of this, this is a beginning. And so I do encourage you to follow through, do your own reading, do your own studying, and embrace the power that you have to create tremendous positive change, not only for yourself, but for everybody else and for the planet. Remember that we're all here simply to save time and reduce the suffering. So thank you very much for attending this, and I'm going to allow Erina and introduce Erina now, who is going to give you some wonderful insights and perhaps a whole new perspective on the power of your own mind and the beauty of mind field repatterning.
Everything starts first on the level of mind. And we are operating from one of two places. We are either coming in each moment from a place of what we call the split mind, or an aspect of our mind that has identified so strongly with the ego sense or separate identity. This is me and all of my experiences, and that's quite contracting and it's quite limiting. And that is an aspect, that split mind of ours is a part of our mind that has taken on amnesia for the purpose of experiencing separate self, something other than wholeness, something separate from our Creator and from each other. So that split mind, the very the very action of splitting off from something indicates that there's scarcity at hand, that there is something less than whole in the experience. And just by the nature of having that as a foundation, what that does for us is that's fear-based. There's a fear that I'm not whole, something's missing, I'm incomplete. And that fear takes many faces. That fear, and we don't even usually know we are coming from that place or holding that fear, if you will. As David mentioned, our unconscious mind is like the whole base of an iceberg under the water. And what we see with an iceberg above the water is a little tip of what's below the surface there. And that's what we're usually operating on, the conscious mind. The conscious mind, by the way, is indicative of the split mind. Our conscious mind thinks thoughts that appear to be separate thoughts from each other. We perceive the world in slightly different ways. Some things we agree on, some things we don't agree on. But one thing's for sure, we feel as though it is our thoughts and our perceptions that there's ownership there. And we value these things, and these things are what keep us separate and in suffering. And that's that little tip of the iceberg. Now those thoughts, not to say that in the unconscious mind we're not operating from that sense of separated self also, because we are. You know, in the unconscious mind we still are harboring beliefs, we're harboring memories, we're harboring ideas that have been manifesting lifetime after lifetime after lifetime in various forms, but again, all based on a sense of fear, a sense of lack, something's missing. So the manifestations are always going to represent that. It's those manifestations, it's what we've created unconsciously mainly. It's what we've created in terms of our beliefs that we have latched onto. This is what creates form, and it creates our experience of life in each lifetime. And these patterns, they're literally, everything is frequency. Everything has, and frequency simply means a rate of vibration. Everything is energy. Our thoughts, our emotions, you know, my body, everything is energy. We know now through science, through modern science, we're even recognizing that in these physical bodies of ours that we think are so dense and formed and material, if we really were able to look under a very, very high-powered microscope that was able to capture below the cells, the molecules, and then the atoms that create this physical form, we would see that even within the atoms there's actually more space than there is particle, than there is material. So as dense as we think these bodies are and how they are fixed and formed, there's more space here than there is actual matter. And everything, all of it, the matter and the space in between, everything has vibrations. So what David was showing earlier is that we are able to, through the pendulum use, access specific frequencies or vibrations that are captured as memory, as images in our body, in the energy field around us, in our lives, that are specific frequencies that somehow along the way we have latched onto and called part of self. And these frequencies are limiting by nature, excuse me, many of them. And so what we're doing in accessing, I should say, going down the rabbit hole into the unconscious mind with our pendulum, is we're looking to see what among these patterns, among these frequencies, these beliefs and these emotions associated with beliefs and thoughts and experiences we've had, what is holding us in limitation now? And that limitation, when we're holding on to these energy patterns, again, everything has a specific rate of vibration or frequency to it. And let's say we have a trauma when we are 2 years old. We fall down and no one's around to help us right away. Our mother's in the other room. She doesn't even hear us right away. It becomes, that little fall can become a major trauma in our lives. And the energy of that experience, the trauma, literally registers in our body and in our energy field as a frequency that will stay with us until somehow we release it. Now, in that case, when we hold on to these traumatic patterns, like attracts like. So when these frequencies become dominant or are triggered by something in our lives, they literally will recreate or call to us situations and people that are going to resonate with these frequencies and reproduce traumatic events over and over and over again. So we're always repeating the past based on the frequencies we're holding in our body and in our fields. So when we also hold good frequencies, when we have loving moments, that recognition of wholeness and that awareness of love, that is really our truth. That is associated with that aspect of our mind that never has forgotten wholeness and that always knows perfection, but we're not always tapping into that part. But that frequency is our eternal state, if you will. And so what we're doing is, when we're doing a clearing, we're simply finding what wants to come to surface, to be released, to open the field so that we can experience more of those loving vibrations that speak to us of who we really are, and how whole we are, and how complete and how perfect we are as we are created, and how part of the whole we are with everyone else who is equally as perfect. So moving the patterns around in and of itself really is not much more than moving deck chairs around on the Titanic. If that's all we do, we might have a better view for a while, but we're still not solving the situation. So what we do when we clear these patterns is we allow ourselves, we pay attention to the space we have made by releasing some of these frequencies, that sense, that glimmer of peace that we feel. Perhaps we feel a little more open, perhaps we feel a little more relaxed, and we put more attention on that. The more we put our focus on anything, we grow it. So the more we place our focus on the peace in between our clearings, the peace that starts emerging and how relaxed we feel, that becomes more of our dominant experience. We come back to truth, if you will. We come back to experiencing who we really are. That's our primary purpose for using mind field repatterning, is to release these chaotic frequencies, to allow ourselves to rest in that peace, not rest by, throwing it all aside and becoming complacent, rather to take those moments of awareness and really focus on that and cultivate that. That's the beauty. It's like chanting. If any of you have ever chanted mantra, it is the sound, it's sacred sound. It actually reorganizes our field and our cells and our DNA even to chant specific mantras or tones and vowels over and over and over again. But it is in that resting spot, when we stop the sound coming out, when we have completed making sound and we rest in that in-between space, that is the jewel in the center. That is us coming into that peace zone, if you will. And so what I'd like to encourage you to do for this second part of the presentation is, again, realize everything is energy, so it's all changeable. The only thing that's not changeable is who you really are. That sweet zone, that recognition of yourself as love and all others as love too, that vibration of pure peace without any variation on that. That never changes. Everything else is changeable. It's only energy, it's only frequencies. We do not create frequency, we do not destroy it, but we can change it. And so that's what we're doing together today. I invite you to check in now. I encourage people to feel the body to become aware of how you're feeling in the moment and to pay attention to that. Many of us don't even know what that's like. You ask somebody, how do you feel right now? How is your body feeling? And they come up with concepts, storylines, and that's not feeling. Feeling is a sensation. It's a sensation that we have in our body. We feel either open or we feel maybe contracted, tightness somewhere, maybe if you, and you can recognize at different times, if you think about when you are under stress or when somebody has angered you, do you get a sensation of tightness or constriction in a certain part of your body? Sometimes people get it in the back of their neck or their shoulders. Sometimes people get a tightness in their what we call the solar plexus, or a couple inches above the navel, right there at the upper abdomen region. Sometimes that just tightens up. That's a feeling. That is a sense of something going on in the body and what it feels like. So I invite you to take a moment and simply close your eyes if you feel comfortable with that, wherever you're sitting right now. Start at the top of your head, just with your awareness. Your eyes are closed. By the way, we use up 95% of our sensory ability when our eyes are open. The eyes take it up. They kind of rule, which is why if we want to tap into our other sensory experience, our sense of hearing more, our sense of feeling more, feeling what's happening in our surroundings or in our body, to close our eyes opens us up to being able to pull that off with greater ease. So closing your eyes, relaxing your attention on your breath, allow yourself to just feel the breath moving in the body, literally moving into the lungs, down through your trachea, which moves down through the throat into the chest area and into your lungs. Imagine, using your imagination, which even Einstein has said is far more powerful than our intellect. Using your imagination, imagine that breath to move throughout every cell in your body as you take it in. Feel what that feels like. With your breath out, release that energy, release that breath, and feel what it feels like to let it all go, just out of the body. Doing that a few more times. Now bring your awareness to the very crown of your head, above your head, and just in a spiraling, with your eyes closed, imagine a spiraling movement down the head and neck area and shoulders. And just see what it feels like. What does your head feel like right now? Does it feel the head and the space around it? Does it feel spacious? Does it feel tight or constricted? Does it feel more open on one side than the other side? By open, I just mean a sense of lightness, non-tight. Move into the neck area with your awareness, the neck and throat area, and into the shoulders. What does that feel like? And let go of any stories that might pop up around it. We always we're so used to stories. We want to attach a story to everything. Oh, I always have this tightness in the left shoulder, or, yes, I've had this for years. Let it go. See what arises. Simply let it go. All you're doing is you're witnessing what your body feels like. Move down the arms into the palms of your hands. Feel what this feels like. Going back up the arms, it only takes but a moment to check in. Go to the upper back and chest area, circling, spiraling with your attention, your awareness, down through this area. See if there's any tight spots, if everything feels open. Maybe you can even feel energy moving in your body. Move down then into the abdominal region and the mid-back region, just circling around and being a witness to the sensations that you are feeling in your body and what the space around you feels like. Allowing your attention to continue moving downward to the hip area, the pelvic region, the tailbone, circling, spiraling around, getting a sensation of what that feels like. And breathing, don't forget to breathe. Just pay attention, allowing your body to speak to you. What does it feel like moving down the legs, past the knees, the calves, into the ankles, into the feet, and even below the feet, below your tailbone, extending to the earth around you, whether you have your feet touching the ground or not. Just allow your awareness to move all the way to that space of the ground underneath you, and what that feels like, and what your body feels like all the way down to the feet and below. And just pay attention. Keep one bit of your awareness, or 10% of your awareness, as Eckhart Tolle suggests, on how your body feels in each moment. What that does is it creates what they call present moment awareness, or being in the now. And we are accessing our right-minded self when we are in that space. We are accessing that part of our mind that knows wholeness. And even just doing that starts unwinding these storylines or frequencies we've been holding so tightly onto. Every time we allow our awareness to be really present to how we're feeling and what we're experiencing in the moment, we start actually accessing that part of the mind, the part that is not based on analyzing or analyzing information, the part that is more experiential, that abstract part which is always in connection and awareness with your truth, with your wholeness. So that being said, as we go through the rest of this presentation together, I'm going to encourage you to keep at least 10%, a little bit of awareness on how you're feeling. As we do some dowsing together, we're going to be working with some charts now together. And as we spin some things out, you may perceive some kind of a change happening, some kind of a subtle and sometimes not so subtle feeling sense. Maybe something will feel tighter as we bring up some information and then be released. Then you'll feel more openness. And maybe not. Just know that it's working one way or the other, whether you perceive it or not. But if you're not paying attention, you're not going to perceive it. You won't know if there's a change happening. David talked about being in a relaxed state of mind when we're dowsing. And that's really important for our dowsing accuracy and the efficiency and effectiveness of the shifts that we are working on making with that wonderful spin that he talked about. He was using a bobber, I believe, as he was going through the first part of the presentation. In fact, yes, he was. And that's simply a different version of the pendulum. I prefer to use the pendulum when he is working in classroom. He likes to use the bobber, and basically it's doing the same thing, whether we are getting a spin going this way or we are getting a spin going this way. It is creating in the center of that spin, as he mentioned earlier, it's creating a portal for changes to occur in. Like tornadoes that move through an area, after a tornado has moved through an area, oftentimes what is found in the wake of a tornado are different materials that are embedded, not just forced into each other, but literally the molecules have merged. You might find some metal rod that is now in a piece of concrete, and you cannot, it's not just pulling the rod out, it has merged molecularly with that concrete. How does that happen? That's wild. They've been trying to figure that out for a while. What happens is, at that center point of the tornado, right in the center there, because of the way the spin is happening and interacting with other energies around it, it is creating what's called a torus shape. That spin literally creates the shape of a donut, not just going around in a linear fashion, but with energy patterns coming around as though it were a donut of energy turning in to itself into the center and coming back around again. What happens when waves, when energy patterns do this, is that the center creates then a hyperdimensional space, or beyond limitation of vibrational planes as we would look at them, beyond, so we can break down, dematerialize through our intention. We can literally dematerialize in the center of that spin situations, physical issues, emotional patterns, all correlated patterns that are having to do with a specific situation we'd like to create change in. It is breaking apart the tight little patterns and their frequencies, and it is opening it wide to create what's called a phase shift, or a change in energy form on all levels. So what we often see, what we look for, is going to the core of a situation and finding out, as David did when he just demonstrated looking at a specific focus with, in the case that he used, toxins that were being held in the body, and finding out where the mind is holding in a very specific lock and key pattern, where the mind is holding the core of this pattern, and unraveling it then on all levels. So in the center of that spin, we have a very powerful field to unwind patterns and to create something new with our intention. It's not just a focal point, although it works great to focus on our pendulum, but it's literally working as a carrier wave for us, a very powerful one at that. So, knowing what we can do, changing frequency, and paying attention to your body as we go through this, I'm going to check in for the group as a whole now. And I can use my hand, and I'm not sure, I was listening from the other room, I'm not sure if David spoke of using the hand as a chart, but if he did, I'm just repeating it for you. So we can use our hand as a counting system if we use the spaces and the fingers. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And I can use this to find out information in a variety of ways. In this case, I can also use that 10 to represent 100% and the 0, well, to represent 0. So in this case, I'm going to ask in general, so how grounded we are as a group right now. So that will be applicable to all of you who are watching this classroom with us, who are in this classroom with us. So as a whole, we are currently 50% grounded. So what does that mean? What does grounding even mean? Well, it means being fully in our bodies, having our mind, our spirit, our awareness fully present in the body, as I was just talking about, putting a little bit of attention in the body and allowing ourselves to be present. Okay, so when we're ungrounded, usually it's a statement of our mind being all over the place, thinking about everything we didn't do yesterday that still needs to be done, what we have to do today, what we're going to do 6 months from now. Our mind goes all over the place. Maybe you've noticed that. When we start paying attention, or being what they call the witness to our thoughts, we realize, oh my God, the thoughts are all over the place. That's being ungrounded. And we've actually, in the Western culture, put some value on that. Being a good multitasker is valuable in this culture, and in truth it actually keeps us out of our body, keeps us less effective than we could be. If we allowed ourselves to be in the body and allowed our mind to become more streamlined with laser-like precision, we would be more effective, and we would get done everything we need to do in an appropriate amount of time. So when we're ungrounded, we're not there. And what's going to happen is we're going to have accidents, we're going to have our day not go right, because we literally, when we're not grounded, when we're all over the place with our mind, we are creating a chaotic field around us. And so that chaotic field is going to interact with other like fields, chaotic fields, so we're more likely to create a chaotic day. We're only 50% grounded right now, which means we're kind of traveling around. People make a lot of, or some people put a lot of attention on how cool it is to travel out of our bodies, to astral travel. And I suggest to you that it's quite a bit more difficult and much more of a skill to be able to stay in your body. We're all traveling all the time. We can be intentional about when we want to, let's say, have an altered state of consciousness and when we want to be in body. So right now, paying attention to how your body's feeling right now in general. We just did that scan. You should be perhaps familiar with that now. We're going to do a right spin. David talked about the left spin as releasing and the right spin bringing in. And often we use a left spin for releasing. In this moment, let's just use a right spin to bring ourselves fully into our bodies. So we now bring ourselves, every aspect of our mind, our being, our spirit, fully into our bodies. We move in, we bring this energy in through our crown, through the crown of our head, and some call the crown chakra, all the way into the body, extending, filling every space, and connecting us, rooting us, cording us with an energy cord to the earth, deep into the earth, allowing us to be feeling safe, secure, and okay in our bodies. Pay attention to your body, and as we are spinning this in, bringing ourselves back into our bodies fully, see if you notice any subtle changes in your body. Maybe you're noticing that you are just aware more of the lower part of your body, your seat or your legs or your feet feel ever so slightly heavier. It is the awareness coming into the body, and believe me, you're much more empowered in this place. So I like to really check in if you ever, and we're going to continue spinning till the spinning stops, by the way, paying attention to your body, to check to see how grounded you are once a day, a couple times a day, or any time when you're feeling distracted and scattered. This is a very simple exercise and a very empowering exercise with your pendulum. What is my degree of being grounded right now? And you spread your hand out, use it as the counting device. And I get, actually for our group right now, we came into 100%. So see how you feel on that. And again, if you're just having a crazy morning and you feel like things are not going right, check in to see how grounded you are. Spin yourself up into the body, and you're likely to notice a difference. It can be really significant and really quite helpful. So again, what we're aiming here for is empowerment, being more effective, feeling more whole, feeling clear in life. And how powerful can we be with whatever we're doing when we're in that space? So the clear mind and bringing ourselves into feeling the body and allowing, this is really mind-body connection, isn't it, we're talking about here. The mind is ruling the show, the body just follows, by the way. Our body is a shadow, if you will, of what's happening on the level of mind. And again, most of it's happening on the level of unconscious mind. So even illnesses we're sustaining or problems we're having with our health, whether they're chronic or acute problems, even if it's an accident we've sustained, there's going to be factors on multiple levels that lie at a causal point for even that accident to have happened or for that illness to have developed in the body. So we can explore the mind to see where to go to a causal level to start unwinding those patterns, again, to bring the body back into a place where it remembers how to come back into health, or what David mentioned earlier, homeostasis, coming back into a better state of optimal health, happiness, and fulfillment in life in all areas. So David gave a demonstration before. What I'd like to do with you now is I'd like to explore a little bit and just go a little further on what he was doing about focal dowsing, taking a specific issue and seeing where the mind wants to take us to get to the core of the problem and unwind the patterns on all levels. And one of the first thing we need to be really clear on, by the way, is, well, we need to have a relaxed state of mind. Get yourself into what we call an alpha brainwave state. And we can either create an 8 figure in front of us, or we can even go into and just with our eyes, with our mind and our peripheral vision, just pay attention to that figure 8. This is another way to do it. David showed another technique before. Just imagine a figure 8 going back, and it synchronizes the right and left hemispheres of the brain, and it brings us immediately into a relaxed place. Another very simple way to do it is pay attention to your breathing, as we did a few moments ago. Maybe you noticed how relaxing that was. It too, the mind always wants something to do. If we give it an experience to have, if we put the attention, instead of problem solving, if we put the attention on feeling an experience, like our breath or imagining a figure 8, what happens is we immediately slow down the brain waves and we go into an alpha brainwave state or a more relaxed place, and then we're going to be in a better state to do any of this work. So we do that first. Now we want to get really clear. The next important thing is get really clear on what you're dowsing about. What is it that you're seeking to find out? And that's answering the question what. So what is the foundational question here, the fundamental question? What am I inquiring about? And David spoke on that before. He said, I think he used the example of gas in the car. If I just say, do I need gas in my car? Well, if I have a gas-operated car, I'm going to get a yes on that, whether I need it now or not. If I specify, do I need gas in my car right now, I will have a more accurate answer for what I'm seeking to know in this moment. And so be precise, be really clear about what you're asking. The next thing is, where is the core of this? Like, where do we go from here? Well, here I am, I know what I'm asking about, I'm inquiring about a specific thing, and let's get an example in place now. Well, we'll use a different example in a few moments. I'm going to explore that with you. Let me wait on the example and let me just lay this down first, and then we'll go right into that. So, I want to find out, once I know what I'm inquiring about, let's see, let's inquire about the, I want to open things up, let's say, in work. I want to bring in more prosperity. A lot of people have a prosperity conversation going on these days. Everyone wants to feel a bit more safe and more secure. We have changing economy worldwide. So there's a lot of insecurity around that. So let's say I want to explore the idea of prosperity, and to what degree, and we can try this right now, and I'm going to ask for the group, to what degree, with 100% being absolutely in alignment with being optimally prosperous in your life, in all areas of your life, financially and otherwise, relationship-wise, in all areas of your life, being prosperous. Let's ask for the group right now, what degree, to what degree, with 100% being optimal, where are we at right now in agreeing on that prosperity? And guess what, folks, we're only at like 10% or 15% as a group. Doesn't mean each one of us, it means that's the average. What do we do from there? Wow, let's get more prosperous, eh? So the next thing we want to do then is find out where. So patterns repeat themselves, by the way. We're in a holographic universe. And Michael Talbot wrote a book, The Holographic Universe. It's a wonderful book to read if you're curious about this. What it's saying is that patterns, everything's frequency, everything's energy, and a specific pattern is repeated over and over and over and over and over and over and over, in almost infinitively. I would say almost, because infinity is not really describing what we call what happens within the dream, so to speak. It really only speaks of that accessing that whole self state, or that immortal self, and it doesn't deal with, so patterns, let me rephrase this, patterns are always changeable. I said energy is changeable. So there's nothing infinite. We can change patterns all the time. However, Patterns repeat, frequency repeats in different harmonics, just like with music. If we're at a keyboard or a piano, we can use a key, a C note, let's say, and that C note is going to repeat down the keyboard, isn't it, in different octaves. It also is going to resonate with other keys. It's going to have other keys that are going to vibrate or actually really resonate and sound good with it. When we make a chord up, let's say a C chord, we're going to have 3 keys. We're going to place our fingers down on 3 keys on a keyboard to get a specific sound that's all going to resonate in what we call the chord of C, for instance. And this is true of all patterns that we experience. They repeat over and over again. There are harmonics, there are octaves, and it goes on and on and on. Within this universe and all universes, everything, we are part of the whole. Every little particle is part of the whole. And interestingly, because patterns repeat over and over again, the whole of all universes is present as a frequency, as a memory in each particle. The smallest particle of sand, the smallest atom in your body contains all the information of the universe and all universes. Isn't that crazy? So what that tells us, if that information is repeated over and over again, what we're looking for is, where does the mind want to take us to a specific point of reference to release patterns on all levels most effectively. And so the next question, after we know what we're talking about and what we are researching, in this case our prosperity, our havingness, if you will, which we're only at 10% of, we want to know why we're not accepting prosperity at 100% optimal in our lives. And so what's blocking that? So again, in an ideal state, we recognize our perfection and our wholeness, which is 100% prosperous at all times too. So what's blocking that? So the next question is, what realm do I go to that will best take me to the specific point that will unravel blockages on all levels? And so the realms that we deal with, to keep it simple and keep a structure in place, are physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, or environmental. That's where we start. And then we have additional questions that we would look at in each of those areas. But for us right now, just to give, again, this is a little mini class we're doing here, for us right now to figure out as a group how we can unlock and release blockages to our prosperity, let's ask where that's at. And so I'm going to ask, is the core of this issue for our group physical? No, the core of the blockage, no. Is it the core cause of the blockages? Is the core root of this found on a mental level? No. Emotional? No. Spiritual? No. Environmental? Yes, on an environmental level. And so then, then I simply explore. And we have a series, and again, in our book, we go through a lot of this, but there's a series of charts we can work through, a series of questions we can ask. Basically, you ask what comes up next in your mind. Environmental, well, what does that mean? Does it mean our current living environments? Do we need to clear our living environments? I'm getting a no on that. Are we talking about a parallel experience, a parallel reality, or a trajectory or timeline? No, we're not talking about that. Are we talking about the collective global environment? We are talking about that. So we actually are being called to look in a big picture way at unraveling this pattern that each one of us is responding to in our own personal lives, on a global level. So environmentally, so are we talking about beliefs that have been saturating the global mind, that are keeping us locked in a sense of scarcity? And I'm getting a yes on that. And by the way, if you're playing along and you're getting anything other than that, it's just telling you that your mind is taking you to a different point, and it's all perfect, by the way. It's owner, no, not owner, but whoever is working the pendulum, whatever comes up for you is absolutely perfect, and it will unravel things just as effectively as someone next to you. And so, but in this case, I am getting, this has to do with belief patterns held on a global level in the collective consciousness, and I am getting called to do some time travel. I just asked, and I'm getting a yes. Do we need to go to a specific point of time on this planet to best release limiting beliefs that are keeping us all stuck in a fear-based place around prosperity? I'm getting a yes on that. So using my hand, I now ask how many digits are in that year we want to go to. In this case, we're getting called to go back pretty far. We're getting 9 digits. So 9 digits, I believe, is speaking of 100 million years ago or so. Well, that is, that seems like a long time ago, and yet there was life on this planet, and there was consciousness on this planet, and the planet actually has her own consciousness. So we are called to go back to that point in time, and I'm going to next get the digits that we need to go to, and then we will just intend to go to that point and release these inhibiting thoughts, these limiting thoughts. So the first digit, and so I want to ask, so I got 9 digits in the year we need to go back to. First digit is 1, second digit is 0, third digit is 0, next digit is 0, 1, 0, 0, 0, okay, 1, 0, 9, I believe we have 2 more, 0, 2. And that is BC. And so we go back now, and again, check in on your body and the space around you. What you're doing is, in this moment together, we are letting go of collective patterns that each one of us has been harboring and playing with to keep us blocked in prosperity. So let's rock on and let go of these patterns. Okay, so with a left spin now, we now go back to that date, that specific date that we came up with together on this planet in BC, and we now release at that point in time all patterns, all beliefs, all thoughts, all patterns that are core to us holding fear around prosperity in our world, and to us limiting the ability, the awareness, and the understanding that we all, each and every one of us, indeed, not only have the right, but are part of the whole, and so therefore we all are fully able and capable to be prosperous on all levels of our lives. There is enough resources, there are enough resources on this planet to sustain everyone. We just have been blocking our awareness to them and blocking our access to them. So as we go back to this point in time and we unwind, we release at a point of origin all fear-based beliefs, thoughts, and associated emotions and other experiences that we have taken on from that point of origin and played out in a multitude of lifetimes together here on this planet and otherwise. We release these patterns and all negative effects, keeping us small, keeping us limited, and scarce in scarcity mode. We unwind these from our neurologic system, from all aspects of our physical and non-physical being in this moment, in this lifetime as well. This is a collective unwinding. We are doing this on a global scale here. So we get that, and we are aware that as we join hearts and minds right now, releasing these patterns and all the negative effects of these patterns, we extend this as a blessing throughout the globe, that each one of us on this planet may awaken to a greater sense of prosperity in collaboration with each other, with one, as one. Okay. And so my spinning stopped on that. So I'm asking now, are there any environmental factors that are holding, that's where we started, right? Finding out it was in the environment. We had to see what environment. Are there any environmental factors now holding us in anything less than 100% prosperity? No, there are not. Are there physical factors? I'm getting a yes on that. Are there mental factors? No. Emotional factors? No. Spiritual factors? So once I'm done with one area, I may check to see if there's secondary areas affected. I'm getting yes on a physical level. We are still holding on to something as a group, and we're holding on to cellular memory. Fear-based cellular memory around poverty and scarcity, around starvation, around fear of survival on this planet. So we're now called to release from cellular and DNA memory these patterns. We're going to do a left spin together. So with the left spin now, we now release from cellular memory, from DNA memory, all limiting patterns, all beliefs, thoughts, emotions, karmic patterns, ancestral patterns, all factors that we've been holding in cellular memory that are blocking our awareness and realization, acceptance, and experience of optimal prosperity in all areas of our life. As we clear these cells and the DNA, we bring our DNA into a new template, the strands, each strand of DNA in our body, we adjust to hold a new imprint, and the new imprint is one of recognizing prosperity on all areas of your life. So as you're sitting there and we're doing this spinning, just use your imagination and travel with that imagination to each and every cell in your body, to your DNA, and see yourself creating a new imprint now, a new template, in full alignment with and awareness of great prosperity for self and for all. Okay, I'm getting that part is complete. Are there any other causal points keeping us from 100% prosperity on all levels of our life? In any realms? No. To what degree now? Let's go back to seeing where we're at now. We started at around 10% together. Let's go back and see where we're at now to accepting full realization and expression of prosperity in our lives. I'm getting 100% now. So wonderful work. That's great. That is how we start exploring things. Where do we need to go to release these blockages on all levels? We unwind the patterns, reverse ill effects, and really also we can intend to heal all relationships implied. And so now, that is the final chart that I'm going to present you with today, but we're going to finish up the dowsing part of this program here together with a number to integrate everything that we've done together today. And so, patterns are repeated over and over again, just like I've been repeating that statement over and over again. And numbers are part of that repetition. We can access, find out, excuse me, a number that would be correlated with any situation, any issue. There is a number that we can access that can help us bring energy in that vibrates at that number or release energy through using that number. And numbers are associated with the sixth, what we call the sixth dimension, in a 9-dimensional model as outlined by Barbara Hand Clow in Alchemy of 9 Dimensions. And the sixth dimension is noted for sacred geometry as well as mathematics as numbers. And basically, it is a gateway point, the sixth dimension. It is a gateway between sound and light energy coming from the upper dimensions into forming, manifesting as matter. So the sixth dimension is when matter starts when energy starts vibrating, light and sound energy start vibrating at a level that it is starting to move towards forming as matter. And so it's very powerful to access the six-dimensional template with either a number, or we can work it in other ways, but in this case we're going to access a number that can help us integrate everything we've done together today and help these releases and these new energy patterns continue working with us in the most appropriate way for each one of us until no longer needed or desired. And so let's access a number, and again I can use my hand for this. Is there a number appropriate to integrating everything we've done together today? And I'm getting a yes on that. How many digits are in that number for us right now? I'm actually getting only one digit in this case, and that number is 9. 9 is a gateway number. 9 signifies completion and new beginnings. So as we douse in, we're going to broadcast this number into us so it will be a right spin. And as we broadcast it in or douse it in with a right spin, we douse in this gateway number 9 to assist each one of us in integrating all of the releases, the clearings, and the shifting of energy that we've done together today, as well as to bringing completion to all other aspects of our lives that no longer serve our highest good, and welcome in new beginnings that are most appropriate to fulfill us on all levels of our being, in alignment with our highest purpose, in all aspects of our life. May the benefits of the clearings we've done today extend to our family members, our loved ones, and out into our communities as a blessing, as a wave of grace that just keeps going, as we are truly all here at this time to open up to something, I won't say new because it's just remembering who we really are. So we invite you to play with mind field repatterning, as we have gone through a demonstration of it with you today, to play with it and see how it works into other things you're doing, how it works, how it integrates into your life to help you access what your mind wants you to access, to release limitations and to open up to your full potential and joy, to recognize yourself, to make room for, to clear the patterns that have been obscuring love's presence in your awareness. So to really create space and make room for miracles. Thank you for being with us.
So thank you for joining us on this film journey. I hope you absorb something, and we trust that this information will serve you. That's our intention.
Yes.
Serve you to your highest good, and we really welcome any questions you might have. We'd love to hear from you.
And we have actually a Dowsing, a mind field repatterning certification course. It's a board certification, and we are offering that, and we have found this to be such a liberating practice ourselves, and we incorporate it into all areas of our lives, every other modality we do also, and we invite you to come check it out and try it out with us, and also in everything else that you are experiencing and doing for yourself. It's a great time of awakening for all of us, and we offer you thanks too, great gratitude for you being who you are and offering what you offer to the whole. Thank you.
Aloha.
Yes. Aloha.
Thank you for joining us in this program. We hope that you use these tools to affect that great change in your life and to protect the environment. This work goes deeper. If you'd like to learn how to use charts to answer all questions and to do a scan on your body in all areas of health, mental, physical, spiritual, and emotional, Then join us for Dave and Erina Cowan's Level 1 and Level 2 certification course. Each course is over 10 hours long, and it's full of incredible information, plus charts and other materials that you get with the course. This is a great healing modality to add to your practice, and this online video course is accessible to you in over 10 hours on Level 1 and Level 2. It's an excellent tool for your healing modality, and we invite you to share this with the world. Here are some comments from class participants.
Yeah, I've done private sessions with David and Erina, and it has been quite remarkable for me, and so I was thrilled when they put together this workshop. And I find them both to be incredible teachers and very, very clear about the topic. And what I really like about it is dowsing beyond duality. So it's not really something about making something right or wrong or looking for the ideal way of leading a life, but to actually have more peace and clarity about directions in life and about just being more peaceful within yourself. So I really appreciate them for that. I'm a chiropractor, and I've been in practice for 37 years. And I've been using dowsing type things, although it wasn't necessarily called that, for most of my career. Although I never quite really understood dowsing until I studied with David and Erina. So I really appreciate them filling in a lot of blanks that I've had questions about over the years. It fits in totally with my business, and I think I'll actually use some of the charts and some of the information to work with patients before they actually show up in the practice, so I can understand where to take them possibly and how to maybe enhance their experience.
Well, this was so much fun, more fun than I thought it would be. I had read both books that Erina and Dave had published, and have been studying and using the pendulum for many years, maybe 25 years. But this brings up my skill and my information, my confidence, my ability to help myself and others to another level. And so I'm very grateful for that, because just learning something new is always exciting and offers something, as I said, for helping other people as well as myself. So thanks to both of you, to Erina and to Dave.
To know something intellectually and then to experience it are two different things. And this weekend, concepts that I had understood intellectually, I actually experienced, which was pretty much a mind-blowing experience. And I feel almost like I had just been to the Hermitage in St. Petersburg, Russia, where there are so many gems and wonderful works of art. And Erina and Dave kept throwing out things, and they were all gems, and it was just so incredible that, as Erina said, my eyes just kept getting wider and wider because it was so amazing. And I feel like I have had several healing experiences this weekend, and on a very grand level. And I appreciate everything that you have taught me so eloquently, and I aspire to be like that. But I do know that we're all one, so I am like that, which is the biggest gift of all. Thank you.
That was such a powerful weekend. Dowsing far beyond into a mind, field mind, repatterning beyond this level of existence. Still being playful in here, but not taking it so seriously. And knowing that there is much bigger pictures, and that we are growing and awakening in an incredible way, and that dowsing can be a tool to connect us from this dimension in higher dimensions, a way I had never heard dowsing used before. And I really, it's a little interesting and a little new, but it's also very exciting how big that picture is. It's so appropriate for this time to really grow far beyond into galaxies. And the pendulum can get us there. This simple tool in my pocket.
Thank you again for joining us. Namaste.